Hey everyone, Kyle here from Wealthy Affiliate. Today I'm going to be walking you through the process of creating readable content that ranks and that people actually want to read, which is a good thing. I'm going to be walking you through some of the tips and strategies that I use to encourage readability within the content that I write. And it should remain an ongoing focus of yours because obviously if people aren't reading your content, you have no opportunity within that content, whether it be to get someone to join something, to get them to sign up to a list, to get them to comment. If people aren't reading all the way through your content, you're not going to really reap many rewards from it. So I'm going to be taking this raw article that I've written. It's a new post, and I'm going to be showing you how I beautify that. So I'm going to be walking you through the steps of that. So the first focus within my content is creating small readable paragraphs. And this is where a lot of people are led astray. Obviously, growing up, we write essays in school, and a lot of people think that that is what people want to read and how people naturally read. But in fact it's quite the opposite, and we are living in a 140 character world through things like Twitter and Facebook status updates. People are more interested in reading smaller chunks at a time, and you are going to see your readability really go up if you have smaller paragraphs. As I Here's my content that I've created. I've just copied it in here. It has absolutely no formatting at this point. And what you're going to see is that I've created relatively small paragraphs, but there's still some that are definitely too big. And a paragraph like this is definitely overwhelming. And there's things that you can do, and you should chop up your paragraphs where you can. You can even have one line paragraphs where it makes sense, and you basically just want to make your content in smaller bites and more readable. And as you can see, I'm doing that as I go through my content here. So what I'll do normally after I write my content, I'll go back through and I'll shorten the paragraphs. I just want to show you a quick example of what a drawn out paragraph will look like, and you can see for yourself as to how difficult it is to read. And look at this paragraph here. If you were to come to the page and attempt to read something like that, do you think that you'd actually get through it, or do you think your audience would get through it? Probably not. They're going to see content written in this manner, and they're going to run for the hills. They're going to click out of your site, and they're going to go on to do the research, and probably if they're intending on buying something, they're going to buy it through another website. So you've totally lost a sale because you have a huge, massive paragraph. So again, you want to keep your paragraph small, and just make it readable, and it's got to make sense. Obviously, you want to separate ideas properly with paragraphs, but you can have like small paragraphs with, like I said, with one line or even a couple words a lot of time, and that's completely fine. So don't feel that you're writing an essay here. There's no real right or wrong, because you are writing for an audience and not a teacher. So that's basically what I do, and I make it quite readable. So the first step, small paragraphs. You want to make your content readable, and then we're going to focus on making it more visually appealing. So the next thing that I'm going to be focusing on is actually adding subheadings, and you can see them here already, but they don't really stand out enough. So I'm going to be focusing on that next and showing you how to do that. So the next thing I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to focus on creating quality headings within my content, and basically this is going to break up the text. When you have text that's all the same size, it is going to feel a little bit like a novel to read, and we want to make it more enjoyable, and obviously our goal is to make it more readable. So what we're going to be doing is focusing on internal headings within our content. But to give you an example of what this looks like, I save my drafts as I'm going through and working on my content. It's also automatically saved, and you can view your revisions within the revisions tab over here. For those of you that do not know how this works, but I just wanted to quickly mention that I will go that I'll save my drafts regularly, and you can see revisions and see the updates, because a lot of people don't really know about that. And to get back, I'll just go to return to post editor. So that's something I do. I save drafts regularly, but do know that they're automatically going to be saved at certain time periods. So I'm going to preview this post and just show you kind of what I have so far. The main headline is obviously the most captivating headline of your article, and it's going to be the first thing that people read. So if you're not really delivering within your headline something that's interesting, people aren't going to read it. And what is the lowest calorie fruit to eat is my headline. I could make that, and I likely will make it more interesting, by adding something to it. But I'm going to I'll cover that later. Right now I'm just focused on the actual making it more readable. So if you go down, it's not all that visually appealing. If I were to come to the page, and what I do sometimes when I visit websites, and what a lot of people do, is they'll kind of like scan the content first. They'll look for images, they'll look for headlines, and see if anything stands out. And at this point, nothing is really standing out, and I don't think that a lot of people are going to be all that interested by the representation visually of my content. So, the first thing that we're going to want to do is create. So I'm just going to close that down. We're going to want to create heading tags, and I've already naturally created them because it's been part of my architecture to creating different sections of my article or different ideas. So what I'm going to do is I highlight the text, and within the paragraph, I'm going to scroll down and add 8 heading 3 tags, which is my preferred heading size, subheading size. The title of your article is usually going to be an H1 or a heading 1 tag, which is the largest. So you don't want to make something that's a heading 1, else it won't really set your title apart from the actual subheadings. So use heading 3, heading 4s are okay. A rule of thumb, I use heading 3, and then I'm just going to go through all the headings that I've laid out already and add the heading 3 tags. And sometimes I'll write my content, and I'll see a bigger block of content, like maybe 6 or 7 paragraphs, and I'll decide that that's too much for people to absorb without another subheading. And what these subheadings are doing is in essence preluding what's ahead, to create interest. Like people need to know what's coming up in order to captivate their attention, want them to read more. So if there's a huge block of content, you might want to split it up and pull out an idea within the upcoming content and make another heading tag to distinguish that little section there and to create better readability. So I've added these now. I'll probably go back. I don't want to waste any of your time here, but I will probably go back and split up this because it's like 7 or 8 paragraphs in length, and I like to keep my sections a little bit more a little bit smaller, usually 3 to 4 paragraphs, and make them a bit more readable. I've done that. I'm just going to save the draft here, and I'm going to show you the difference as I go through the content within a preview. So now you can see it's starting to come together. The post is starting to come together. These titles I might want to reconfigure to make a bit more captivating, and I probably will. But again, I'll do that after the fact. And as you can see, it's kind of like it's broken up the content and made it more readable. And as you can see, here's this big long section that might be a little overwhelming to my audience. So I'm going to add another headline within there. And when I come back, you'll see that. And when you see my next preview, you'll also see that I've broken that down. But that's what we want to do in terms of sub headlines. You want to use heading 3 tags, and you want to keep it consistent. A lot of the time, what might happen is you might accidentally have an entire section that when you create the heading 3 tag, you see an entire section of heading type content. And what you need to do if you see something like this, I know it's a common problem and I see it all over the place. You just want to press backspace and then a hard enter. So you don't want to press shift enter, you just want to press enter. And then I'm going to highlight this text and make it paragraphed. And you can see that it's made it paragraph. So a lot of the time you'll highlight text within your content. Like if I wanted to highlight that, make it a heading 3 tag, it will make the whole paragraph. And then if I wanted to, I just do a hard enter and then come up here and click paragraph, and then that will fix the issue. Obviously, I'm not going to want to do that in that particular block of text, but I know a lot of people get stuck there, so I just wanted to mention that when creating heading tags, you might come across that. So that's heading tags. They're a very good tool for breaking up your content and making it more readable and making it a lot easier for people to absorb the concepts within your actual content. So the next thing I'm going to be focusing on is using visuals within your content, and I'm going to show you how to incorporate those and do so in a relevant way. So I have my content laid out the way I want it now, but one thing that's really missing out is the fact that I don't have any visual representations of what I'm talking about. A lot of people are very visual in nature. I think this was, it starts early on in our life when we're shown picture books when we're growing up. So I think that we never really lose that as we get older, even though we like to think we do. A lot of people are going to really connect with your content much better if you have visual representations of what you're talking about. And as you go through your different sections of your content, you're going to be able to incorporate images that show people what you're talking about, and not so you're not just telling them what you're wanting to convey to them or get across to them. So what I do is I go through the particular sections of my content, and I'll find areas in which I can incorporate relevant imagery. And as an example here, lemon and limes are low calorie fruits, and that's the topic of my content. So I could capture an image of lemon limes and incorporate it in this area of my article. And then it's going to make your content that much more memorable. People are going to digest it a lot better. No pun intended there, but they're really going to benefit from it lot more, and they're going to remember your content a lot better. So if I was talking about lemon limes here being low calorie fruit, and I had an image of a lemon or lime there, it's going to convert a lot better. As well, if the lowest calorie fruit to eat. So that's the title of my content. So within the very first fold of your page, I'm just going to go over to a preview here. Within the very first fold of your page, you should always have a relevant image that instantly captures the person's attention and is highly relevant to the title of the article. So by first fold, I mean within the first readable area of your content. So what I want to do is I'm going to probably want to have an image over here or an image in between these two paragraphs. I don't recommend a big massive image at the top that pushes all the content down below. I see that quite often, and what happens is people can't see that there's any content on your page. They'll just see a huge block, huge image that takes up the whole first area, as an example, where it's all highlighted there, and they won't be able to see any content. So the readability goes down, and a lot of people aren't going to read your content as a result. Believe it or not, a lot of people won't scroll down to see that there is actually content down there. So what I recommend you do with your article here is you want your first fold to have a really relevant image and something that's going to capture the attention of your audience based on the title. And in this case, it's lowest calorie fruit to eat. What is the lowest calorie fruit to eat? And I'm going to want a relevant image. And then I'm also going to want to incorporate images that are highly relevant to the particular ideas within the content. So basically, I'm going to show people what I'm talking about, and I'm not just going to tell. Just throwing random images in here isn't going to be effective. I want to really be hyper targeted with the images, within the content, so that people can relate the text with a visual. So when I come back, I'm going to have all my images incorporated. I'm going to discuss exactly what I've done and why I've done it. I've gone through this post and I've added images throughout. And if I scroll down, you're going to see there's images throughout the content. And what I want to do is I just want to preview this, and I want to show you what I've done here and kind of explain why. So the title of my post here is "What is the lowest calorie fruit to eat?" And again, I might update that before I actually publish it to make it a bit more interesting. I might just add something else to it to captivate interest right away. But what I've shown here is I've shown someone eating fruit, and that's it's pretty obvious how that relates to the actual title of the article. So the first image within the first fold of the page, and again, what I mean by the first fold is within the first viewable area, shouldn't overwhelm the audience, and it shouldn't take up the whole page. It should be off to the right here, and it should be relevant to the actual title of the content. And then as I scroll down, I incorporate images to show people what I'm talking about. In this case, I'm talking about why counting fruit calories might not work, and then I'm explaining different calorie counts. And I found this chart on the FDA website, and I'm using that to explain what I'm talking about and to give people a visual of different fruits and their corresponding calories. So it's very relevant, and it's going to help inform people and help them understand the concept that I'm talking about quite a bit better. So it definitely adds value there. And here I'm talking about how you can freeze grapes. It's an excellent snack. And I've just incorporated a picture of frozen grapes here. And then in the bottom, I'm explaining that you shouldn't drink juices in fruit juice because it doesn't have the same sort of fiber that eating the actual fruit would have. And I've incorporated an image, and I've just shown people that it's pretty much sugar. So it represents it, and it's an informative image as well. And then that's the content there. So what I haven't done here is I haven't just added images for the sake of adding images. And I see that quite often is people just they hear that they're supposed to add images to their content, and they're just totally random images. The placement of the images isn't relevant, and it really doesn't add a lot of value. So as a rule of thumb, I add images to add value to the content. In this case, I've added additional information as well, but it is going to make it more readable. Like if people read this and they see the grapes, they're going to be taking that visual with them, and they're likely going to remember the content with much more ease. And they're not only that, they're going to read the content with much more ease because it it breaks up the sea of text here. So that's how I go about adding images. One thing I wanted to mention here is I've added a caption below. It says click here to enlarge the chart. So you can click this and it will give you the full-size chart. And I just wanted to show you how I did this within the actual content here, because a lot of people don't know how to use captions. So if I click on my image after I've added it, you're going to see this pencil in the corner, and that's the editing button. I'm simply going to click that, and there's a few image details that we can update there, size and the media file. So we want to, I typically don't link my images. I just will select none when I link them, just because I don't want them linking off to anything or linking to the bigger images. But in this case, it makes sense to link to the full-size version of the image. So I link it to the media file, and what I've done is I've added a caption up here. You can see there's a caption. Click here to enlarge chart. So that's all I've done here. I've just made it link to the media file, which is much larger than the size of selected. I believe it's 1402 by 1388. So I selected a smaller size for my page because I don't want to expand it too far on my page, but I've also linked it off to the media file so people can actually go off and see it. So one thing you'll want to do is open the link in a new window and tab so it doesn't open over top of your content and people close it and they've closed your page. So that's another thing that you're going to want to do if you want to use something like this, which is great for charts. But generally speaking, I don't link my images to anything. In some cases, I'll link it to an affiliate link or off to a review if it makes sense to do so. And to do that, you would select a custom URL and just add your URL there. But basically, that's how I go about. Sorry, I'm just going to edit this here to the media file. And that's how I go about adding images to my content to make my content that much more readable, and it's going to make the experience for my audience that much better. So the last thing I want to talk about is the overall understandability of your content and being thorough with your content so people, gain value and feel informed and feel as though they've been helped. So that's the last thing I'm going to talk about here before I wrap things up. Gone ahead and published my content here, and it's now live, so the world can view it, which is great. But the last thing I wanted to discuss is the thoroughness of your content and the fact that you want to be as understandable as possible, and you want to create it in a way that anyone could come to your page and read it. So you really want to simplify your content. In particular, if you're an expert in the subject area, you need to realize that people are coming to your website with the idea typically of learning something or informing themselves about something, or gaining new insight or new opinion on something. So you need to write your content in a way that is readable. And by that I mean being able to understand it within a wide breadth of people and knowledge levels. So yeah, I wanted to cover that, and I also wanted to explain the fact that I have added very little bold text, colored text, underlined text, italics. I haven't seen a need to add bulleted lists or numbered lists, but those are excellent tools as well, and I will use them whenever I have some sort of list, and I do recommend that you use them when you can. But I don't make my content look like a circus in a sense, because a lot of people they'll download plugins to add colors to their text, And then they start adding color just because they have a tool to do so. It doesn't mean that it's right because you can do something. So I just really want you to refrain from making your content too difficult to read, and a lot of the time that is because people will bold entire blocks of content. They'll add many different colors within their content text, and they will also add a lot of italics and a lot of other font styles throughout their content. So my focus typically is to keep things simple, but to put emphasis on the actual content itself, and present it in a way that is very readable and very visually speaking to the audience. So that's what I want to leave you with here, in respect to making your content readable, is that you really want to take the approach of creating your content for an actual visitor, and not get wrapped up in the idea of you're creating it for a search engine. Because if you do get ranked, which is great, and it's going to happen, you want people to come to your page and actually read your content. Because if that's not happening, then you're going to get no engagement with your content, which is going to minimize future rankings and rankings of the actual page. It's also going to lead to very poor reader rate. A lot of people aren't even going to get past the first couple of paragraphs, and if you don't have a good title, they're not even going to get past the title. So it's quintessential to running a successful business is understanding that readable content is going to lead to people reading it, and thus presenting you with revenue generating opportunities down the road. So that's what I want to leave you with here. I hope you've enjoyed this training, and if you have any question about your content or the readability of it, please feel free to leave your questions below this video, and I will be more than happy to help you out. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you.